I don't want to compare us to any other wrestling company. I mean, we're AEW. We're doing something very different.
It's been an up and down start for All Elite Wrestling in 2025. They finally started making some real money again after that recent media deal. We'll talk about it. Adam Copeland is back in the fold. There's rumors of some unrest in the locker room, but when isn't there? And with regards to certain talents, there's some big stories and some other ones that aren't nearly as hot, and a botch here or there. Just like that, that was the last year of 2024 for All Elite Wrestling, which is incidentally why we're here today. Yeah, I know we're a month behind on this, but yes, we are showing up late. We're like the Death Riders. We show up whenever we want. This is Sportskeeda Wrestling. I'm Kevin Kelm, and today we're looking back at the best and the worst of All Elite Wrestling in 2024. We begin with the bad, because that's why you're all here, right? Yeah, we know. You're all being rage-baited and clickbaited into the algorithm of hatred. Oh, yeah. I started hating Tony Khan because the internet told me to. Yes, trolls who love to troll on the internet, we know you might be here too, so let's get to it. We're not going to get too picky here, but honestly, with some of these moments, there's something really awesome, a good part, and then a bittersweet part. This one's a little bit of both. Yes, let's start with Sting's retirement at AEW Revolution in March. A legendary figure ending an unbeaten run that nobody would have thought was possible a few years ago, with serious injuries and significant age and miles in the ring. Stinger and his tag team partner, the Daredevil Darby Allin, defended their AEW Tag Team Championships against the Young Bucks, the evil corporate executives, Matt and Nick Jackson, in front of a hot crowd in the Mid-Atlantic, where Sting first broke out big with Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA. The match had some truly crazy spots. It may have went a little long, broke a lot of glass, but before you knew it, the Icon picked up the victory for his team with a Scorpion Deathlock. It was an incredible send-off. He also may have had the best entrance of the year, with Sting's own sons portraying costume versions of past incarnations of their father. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Our complaint wasn't even the match. The match was very good. The issue here comes after the match, during the celebration with Sting giving his parting words as he spoke of the 35-year outstanding career he had. He was cut off mid-speech because the pay-per-view had run out of time. You don't cut off an icon like that. It was a bittersweet thing to do for such a special moment. Sting's retirement had likely drawn a good chunk of the 180,000 pay-per-view buys and the sold-out arena there. They had 11 matches on the show, none of which ran under 10 minutes. You think they would have cut a little fat here and there just to make sure that Sting had a moment to say goodbye to the fans after such an outstanding triumph. Something AEW does often is favor long matches over impactful moments. One of the clear, undeniably bad things for AEW in 2024 was the continued decline of live attendances and TV ratings. Yeah, the rage baiters who wallow in internet negativity like a pig in slop love themselves pictures of a big arena, the side of it filled where it's being filmed, and the opposite side with the hard cam filming most of the TV in-ring action being quite empty and not having many people sitting there. Even Pat McAfee, who, pretty biased, yes, he's a WWE commentator, took a pot shot or two on his ESPN talk show. Not having as many fans in 10,000 capacity arenas is an expense, but it's also something that creates continually over time a slogging drain on fan culture and the overall mojo of a body-slamming wrestling show with televised standards of vibes already pressed in our collective minds from watching TV wrestling for years. If the building feels like it's lacking energy in person, sometimes it's eventually going to come off when you watch that show on TV. The end of Rampage was a noteworthy downside of the biggest positive of AEW in 2024. We will touch on that positive a little bit later. Rampage went off the air as a Friday night show in the 9 p.m. Central Standard Time slot, and it drew its all-time highest viewership with the return of CM Punk to pro wrestling at a sold-out United Center in front of one of the biggest arena crowds AEW has ever drawn. That was the height of Rampage in its debut episode. Rampage had its final broadcast after crawling week to week into 2024 in a much different state with lower-tiered talent and matches that simply felt skippable in the overall crowded weekly schedule of televised wrestling shows. On December 27, 2024, the evil Jon Moxley, in character, forced the show off the air. The fall in live attendance was also highlighted by a change in venue for the company's planned Grand Slam Australia show in 2025. Originally announced for the Suncorp Stadium, a venue that holds 52,000 at highest capacity, low ticket sales led to the show being moved. Instead, AEW will run the event at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, an arena that seats about 13,000. A clear sign that AEW is having trouble filling stadiums like they once did a few years ago in the UK. Clearly noticing these metrics and feeling the pressure, they played a card that they thought they had in their deck. They played the AEW All-In, Brawl-In, closed-circuit security television footage from Wembley Stadium. Yes, quite a long time, months after the fact of that brawl between CM Punk and Jack Perry that was well reported. And this was done to boost ratings for about a week, and it didn't stick. AEW also couldn't show CM Punk's face or mention him by name in the presentation, and it all felt like a blurring of the real-life issues with kayfabe storylines, blending in some serious backstage drama that led to Punk being legitimately fired by the company in 2023, eventually allowing him to jump back to WWE in November of 2023. This weird cloud of constant speculation that lurked over AEW with Punk's controversial exit was now being utilized for ratings. It just kind of felt beneath the sports-focused alternative presentation to WWE that All Elite was known for. Some fans online just felt it came off as a short-term, desperate move. It followed CM Punk burying All Elite in a tell-all interview with Ariel Helwani during WrestleMania week, where wrestling as a whole gets more mainstream eyes on it than ever. In that interview, Punk, never known to hold back his opinion when asked, gave his side of the events that happened backstage at Wembley, and it simply did not paint the company in a positive light. Some have blamed AEW's handling of the brawl-in, brawl-out controversies for the downfall in ratings and attendance, though there's no clear connection in those types of speculations with real hard data. This does bring us to our next point, though, which is the abundance of played-out, maybe uninteresting, unfulfilled characters and TV content. For example, some of the high-profile groups who've done nothing but spin their wheels for the last 12 months or so, like the Elite or Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. The Elite faction attacked AEW president and founder Tony Khan, pile-driving him. They attacked their former ally, Kenny Omega, whose absence due to serious illness and treatment for that illness kept him out of the ring for most of the year, only for a short-term cameo so they could do a beatdown angle that has yet to play out in any significant way, the way fans would have hoped it would, at least just yet. The Death Riders are an attempt to use some of the company's biggest names like Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Pac in a fresh, interesting, evil way. At first, it seemed pretty cool when they started it, and Moxley taking the title off of Bryan Danielson had something, but the momentum has not been sustained, and even former MMA pro Marina Shafir being added as muscle is just something that hasn't caught on. Coming in as invaders who still somehow work for the same company, which rarely if ever works in the past in wrestling, just take the Retribution or Nexus groups as first examples of that. Moxley made it work before with the Shield to some level, mercenary types, right? Yeah, but in AEW, it might feel a little misplaced with their hopes, and they think they can recapture lightning in their own bottle. Then there's Mercedes Moné, formerly known to WWE fans as Sasha Banks, who was a big acquisition for All Elite Wrestling, and she's literally just the CEO instead of the boss. It's relatively the same character. It's a good metaphor. You could say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and that can be true, but also if it's the same thing for almost the past decade, there's no harm in changing it or freshening it up. And Mercedes Moné's time in AEW, short of a few matches like her recent one with Chris Statlander, has not moved the needle like some would have expected. Chris Jericho was a part of the launching team for AEW in 2019, and he's been able to reinvent himself throughout his multi-decade career many times. His latest reinvention is the Learning Tree character, another example, though, of something that receives TV time on a weekly basis, continuing to act in a way that no one really understands, gets some heat, but is it something that is moving the story ahead in a way that lures in casual fans, not just the diehards who are there every week? You could argue there might be some type of big payoff at some point, but as of this writing, the segments aren't really getting there or building to that or teasing it, with Jericho sitting atop of the Ring of Honor division as its world champion at the age of 54. Some would question that, but that's also an ageist take as well. Does Jericho need to do what he's done successfully many times? Learn a new hold and maybe even a fresher character? And speaking of Ring of Honor, the once very proud, groundbreaking, independent wrestling landscape that it was, is something that is underneath the AEW banner with a lot of credible talent that feel just not in the mix with everything else. There's so much that can be done with ROH. They have a very, very deeply underrated crop of great pay-per-view events recently, like Death Before Dishonor, but it feels lost in the overall shuffle and not living on its own merit and its own history, besides being another brand within AEW. Honor Club may be where you get ROH TV streaming fairly regularly, but ROH as a brand needs proper television content distribution on a platform that is accessible and easy to find for even the most common fan. Injuries have really hit AEW hard this year. It is a part of pro wrestling, and it is keeping needed, beloved wrestlers off TV at critical times. The leg injury suffered by the rated R superstar Adam Copeland, or Cope, as he likes to be called, was something that really set back some stuff for the company. The man once known as Edge broke his leg during a dive on Malachi Black from the top of a steel cage during their match at Double or Nothing 2024. A devastating blow to the company, given that Copeland is one of the, if not the, biggest names on the roster. Out for a time when AEW really needed his drawing power. Ticket sales in some of the larger buildings may well have been higher, added that Cope was going to be there, but he wasn't. Cope returned to AEW TV in January of 2025 and might have made a difference there in 2024, but things have gone differently. Another growing issue for AEW, and this is one mainly with fans watching the show, so you can throw all the salt you want on this, is the handling of talent as it pertains to how known names are just in some type of wrestling hold pattern, well away from the week-to-week goings-on in the ring and on TV. Big earners on the roster, like former WWE superstars Miro, Rusev, and Saraya, then known as Paige in WWE, collect guaranteed money, reportedly, while not appearing that often on television. When's the last time we saw Miro? While other talents complain of unrest and politics in the locker room, a persistent and annoying issue for fans who love AEW. There's also alleged controversial issues with the Lucha Brothers, once a beloved mass luchador tag team, mainly with Rey Fenix, something reminiscent of WWE's policies in the 2010s. Rey's brother Penta recently had a big rollout, jumping over to WWE, while Rey remains on the shelf with AEW. It starts to create the perception, whether intended or not, of other talented wrestlers on the roster, maybe wanting to defect to WWE or another wrestling company. But it's really up to AEW to keep that perception from becoming reality. With mounting detractors, is AEW taking the criticism constructively and maybe doing something about it? We simply don't know at this point from the outside looking in. You just can't ignore it all. And to those of you faithful to AEW, we get it. You just can't claim it's all CM Punk's fault or whatever. That's just a surface level observation. He's been gone for a while now, and AEW's problems are still there in 2024 and a little bit beyond. AEW loves a rebrand. They rebranded Dynamite again in 2024, but a rebrand shouldn't be an aesthetic. It should be a vision that is applied and perfected. It should be behind the scenes as well. All Elite Wrestling could keep this in mind moving forward. Okay, we're getting preachy, I know, but we're also still gung-ho. This isn't just a hit piece on AEW. Are you going to tune out now? Oh yeah, you heard all your trolling, and they told us we were right. Calm down. There are some outstandingly great things for AEW to look back at in 2024. One being All in London, a sequel to their massively successful 2023 event, which was one of the biggest wrestling shows in the world, and the biggest in the United Kingdom since 1992. Or 2022, depending on who you ask. They sold 46,000 tickets, which is, not 72,000 that they shifted the year before, but what wrestling company outside of WWE is selling 46,000 tickets? Yeah, that's still a very legitimate number when you think about it. Yes, it's a drop, but whatever. The crowd was raucous throughout the show, and AEW shot them well. There was a great match between MJF and Will Ospreay for the International Championship. The main event world title match between Swerve Strickland and Bryan Danielson was one of the best matches of the year, maybe one of the best of Bryan Danielson's career. Yeah, and he's had an amazing career. You can open up Max and see the AEW logo right next to big-time blockbuster movies and DC superhero shows. There is a rub from AEW that makes them feel more legitimate in a way they have never been presented, and hopefully will contribute to their growth in 2025. This deal is seeing the sunsetting of Rampage as a weekly show, but considering that the show is getting lost in the wrestling conversation on Fridays, gobbled up by WWE SmackDown fans going crazy, it's probably a better option. No matter where you stand, another major wrestling company besides WWE, not just getting a TV deal with broad reach, but a streaming deal like AEW has, is a sign of how valuable the genre of pro wrestling is as a whole to major media companies. And that leads us to our next point about AEW in 2024. Their continued existence as a big-time league for big-time talent is exceptionally great. Yeah, when you consider it overall with the entire landscape of the industry. Although they've only been there for a few years, it is a place where wrestlers can go and get a lot of exposure. They seem to be, for the most part, nice, paying talents to maybe stay home when they're injured rather than firing them outright. Yeah, even if they do let talent go, said talent is usually given a number of chances to turn things around at first. This isn't just something they've done in 2024, it has been a consistent thing from the start. Tony Khan also showed his goodwill, donating to a number of charitable causes, including the Dutch Mantel medical bill efforts on GoFundMe. Given that Mantel is a public detractor of AEW's content, that is saying a lot about their attitude and their ability to separate business from real life. Also, it's good that there's something else besides WWE that feels as big. Yeah, that's good for the business, good for wrestling, good for the performers. Especially with WWE and TNA starting a long-term partnership in 2025, AEW should exist now more than ever, because the next biggest competitor to WWE in the United States, at least for now, is one of WWE's own allies. AEW provides a big budget, true alternative. Despite the lack of some creative direction and some mistakes here and there, it is the biggest thing in wrestling besides WWE since WCW. Think about that. That is undisputable. The good news is they've got the time on TV and they've got the money to change things. Let's just hope they can turn things around. And they have all the talent to do that too. We don't want to forget that part. It brings us to the end of this video. We want to know, do you agree with this take? What do you think of AEW right now? What's the best part? What's the worst part? And don't just cop out and do the lazy thing and say, this sucks. No, tell us what's good, tell us what's bad. Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sportskeeda Wrestling for more videos just like this. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.